quality, mass balanced product or biosourced resins to make really also our own product green as well. So there's a lot of things to be done. Our major challenge in our industry is recycling.
Recycling, yeah.
We need to find solutions for recycling composite materials. We're working with many partners and inviting people to join us to find such solutions.
Are there
we need some second use of this stuff.
Are there some solutions concretely today, currently?
Yes. Of course, it's a bit more complex than metallic or aluminum or titanium, but we are working with partners to make a second use of a scrap of carbon fiber. Okay. We're working with the customers of end of life of structures but this may be 30, 40 years down the road, so a bit of time to find solutions. That is a key part of our mission, of my mission to
work on it. All right. Marcelo Rizzo, Global Air Logistics Aerospace Manager for Kuehne+Nagel. Kuehne+Nagel is a global logistic company headquartered in Switzerland. It offers a wide range of logistics services, including sea freight, air freight, contract logistic, and overland transport. Could you tell us, Marcelo, how are companies in the aerospace supply chain collaborating to achieve sustainability goals?
Sure, with pleasure. And I think, back to your point, Thierry, and I appreciate the thoughts, especially I see great advancements in composites that are, in general, helping out the industry and making lighter planes, therefore consuming less. We also are observing these trends when talking about shipping as well. We see a lot of innovations, customers with lighter boxes, that is also supporting saving some costs as well in transportation, because normally transportation is also measured or specified in terms of size and also the weight. And considering that our industry, aerospace, is one of the 7 hard-to-abate industries in our world, because we simply lack the technology in order to make planes fly differently than they would. So it's not a financial hurdle that we are facing, but rather a technological hurdle. And it takes time, as we all know, in aerospace to develop new planes, etc. So we are more or less looking to fly the current planes that we're flying today for the next 10, 20 years. Granted, some other propulsion system will come, etc. But back to logistics and supply chain per se, I would say that our supply chain in aerospace is also pretty heavy. Yeah. For example, because of the nature of a good similar to high-tech, we are heavily reliant on air freight transportation, right? So there's, apart from some tier 1, tier 2 suppliers with raw materials, a lot of our aircraft parts for productions or for maintenance reasons are transported by air freight. And despite the fact that we still have these challenges, we already have today resources to mitigate those emissions. They might not be optimal, they might not be ideal, but we all know best our supply chain, and this is what we are also encouraging.
So precisely, what is your vision of the decarbonization of the industry?
Well, I guess it's been already said, right? We need to, as a whole industry, we need to decarbonize by 2050. I think that's the target, right? Which is tomorrow. So for the moment, and there's obviously a roadmap for that, so it's not just a target that has been set out of the blue, and there's a lot of, and the current phase of this roadmap is investing mostly in alternative fuels, like sustainable aviation fuel. So this is something that we as Kuehne+Nagel, we have been promoting already since 4 years. Mm-hmm. There's clearly a lot of regulational push in order to switch to sustainable aviation fuel.
Is it an issue?
I don't think it's necessarily an issue. We're already seeing some first movers, thought leadership companies already investing in this. We're also seeing plane manufacturers like Embraer that are already preparing their planes to fly this on a better scale. But it's also a matter of trying to secure resources, because sustainable aviation fuel is not abundant. It's also more expensive than the traditional fuel. So I would say, I would also dare to say at this moment that besides just a regulatory, I think companies, they need to start doing it now, because the sustainable leaders today in our companies, in our environment, they're going to be the leaders in the upcoming 20 years.
So the question is how to make a difference in this challenging mission?
So we have a great example that I would like to highlight. We are a logistics company, and we are transporting aircraft engines, and we are based in Switzerland. We saw a company very close by to our SR Technics. They also do maintenance, and we are transporting their engines in and out. And we noticed that one of the engine, in one of their visits, we noticed that one of the engines belonged to the Atlas Air, right? Airline company, cargo company in the US. And they are actually one of our main suppliers because we fly materials in there. And by just connecting the dots right there in front of the engine, it wasn't a test cell, the test cell wasn't running. But right there, we started connecting the dots. And Atlas Air also operates 2 of our 747s that we acquired. And we thought, what are we doing together in order to decarbonize? Because there is transportation involved across the Atlantic to repair engines and then back to the United States. So the first step, I think it's always just going into the challenge together and trying to observe. And because, as I said, we all know our supply chain better. So we started to co-investing in sustainable aviation fuel because it's a higher price to pay. It's roughly 30% more in addition to the cost of transportation. It's not that much, but if you multiply it, it becomes more. We also started to start initiatives that we can measure together the impacts in our company, and most importantly also the data sharing of the emissions, the upstreams and downstreams data sharing. So to answer your question, I hope I did. I think it's about thought leadership. It's just addressing the problem before there is any regulatory mandate, and also by seeing what can be achieved already today, independent from what we have available today. There are already some measures today that we can already take.
Thank you. Michal Novak, global head of airline marketing at Embraer. Embraer is a major Brazilian aerospace conglomerate. It's known for producing a wide range of aircraft, including commercial jets, executive jets, agricultural aircraft, and military aircraft, headquarters in Brazil. Embraer has formed strategic partnerships with other major aerospace companies such as Boeing. And today, Embraer is recognized globally for its innovative designs, advanced technology, and commitment to sustainability. You're going to explain all this. What is Embraer's vision on the decarbonization of the industry precisely?
Well, I would say that our vision is pretty much aligned with the industry by now. I think it took this industry around 3 to 5 last years to more or less figure out what to do. Before this, I think all the industry was decarbonizing already itself by nature. We were naturally incentivized to produce more and more fuel-efficient aircraft, and especially since 70s, since the fuel got more expensive, we witnessed progress on this. But around 2018-19, with Greta Thunberg and flight shaming movement, the industry got a wake-up call. You're not doing enough, rightfully so. And then we were saying, okay, it's not easy how to do it. Yeah. But as of now, if you look at the decarbonization maps that are developed by ICAO, IATA, and many other platforms, they are more or less in line, and they say there's not one single silver bullet to do it. It's gonna be a combination of many factors. Major ones, as you mentioned, sustainable alternative fuels, particularly in this period up to 2050. I think beyond this, we will have a little bit more tools at our hand. The other one, the second one worth mentioning, is simply transitioning to the best possible technologies we have at hand at this time. And to me, this is still shocking that as of today, I think in the larger narrow-body segment, around 80% of global fleets are not up to the latest standard. In a smaller narrow-body and regional segment where we operate, it is almost 90% that's fleet present in the globally flying previous generation. And especially in our segment, moving from the E1 to the E2 or the, I don't know, Bombardier CRJ to the Airbus A220, you name it, the savings that you gain on the emissions are particularly great because this is the segment that witnessed really clean sheet design, which deliver around 2025 up to 30% reduction. So this is first step, and this is our obligation to bring this aircraft to the market. And of course, supply chain element in all of it is also one of the limiting factors. We need to unclog supply chain to be able to pop out those aircraft sooner and deliver to the airlines because they want it. And then there's, of course, third component, more groundbreaking technology, something that probably will gain in relevance as we move closer to 2050. We're talking about fuel cells, hydrogen-powered aircraft, electric aircraft. I think on this part, there's still no convergence, which would be the magical, most suitable technology. Probably different segments, different applications and missions, depending on the range and size, will prefer different technology. But all we know in Embraer is that we will play a major part in delivering those groundbreaking technologies into the market, because we are, I think, our points of differentiation versus Airbus and Boeing is our agility and the track record of certifying aircraft in a record time. We did, I think, 20 or 21 new product development only in this century. And we are also the only ones who can make smaller programs,
Right.
profitable, economical, and we know that those groundbreaking technologies will emerge first in a smaller segment, in a segment of up to 30, 50, maybe 70 seats. This is where I think we have a competitive advantage versus the
my
bigger
next
guys.
question was the same as the one to Marcelo, how to make a difference in this challenging mission. So agility is a part of it.
I think it is agility. I mean, for us, of course, our product cycle is measured in not even years, decades, right? And we are at the end of the supply chain, almost the very end. And there are probably some of the patents, innovations that we can develop in-house. We do our fly-by-wire system ourselves, but vast majority of the economics of our aircraft depend on what the guys at this panel and the other 5,000 suppliers that we cooperate with come up, and those increment savings that they can deliver, as soon as they form up a collective savings of around 10, 15, 20%, this is where we can start thinking this makes sense economically to launch a new product that will be scalable, and yeah, we're on it. We are engaged in the discussions with suppliers, with partners to monitor when is the moment to.
Precisely, from your experiences, could you tell us how your efforts in decarbonizing the industry are currently perceived by your end customers?
End customers for us are the airlines, but in essence, maybe our indirect customers are also passengers. But yeah, mostly directly we deal with airlines. I think airlines are in the toughest position because they are in the spotlight, right? They are the ones that directly pollute the atmosphere, so to say. So the expectations from the general public, politicians, most of the regulations are targeting the airlines, and yet they themselves have very limited tools. I mean, they can fly less, basically. So they are naturally looking at us for help. What can you do to help us, right?
It goes into their scope 1 as well, right?
It does, right?
They are the direct emitters of those.
And I think we, in Embraer, we try to be the voice of the reason when explaining it to them. We don't want to overpromise, right? There was a lot of fuss around some startups that were promising delivery green aircraft in up to 100 seats as soon as 3 years from now. We think that this is counterproductive. This actually holds the investment. This is holding the refleeting that I mentioned, refleeting to what is available right now. So we're saying, no, this major change will come. I think we are all up for a very positive story for aviation, because I honestly believe that by 2050 we will be competitive on the environmental front versus other mode of transport, but it's going to take, let's be realistic, 15, 20 years before we get there. Before this, we have to come up with positive stories that maybe have smaller impact, but at least we're doing something now. So, of course, anything that we do on our own production, our own scope 1, how we produce our energy, what energy we supply, how we map the CO2 emissions upstream of our supply chain, these are the stories that we need to pack educate our customers, airlines, and then they can maybe do it, explain it to their stakeholders.
Interesting, the voice of the reason rather than big promises. We'll come back to that. Mohamed Al-Mari, CEO Barzan Holdings today. Congratulations. And Barzan Holdings is a Qatari company that focuses on the defense and security sector. It aims to revolutionize Qatar's defense and security industry by advancing human capabilities, developing cutting-edge defense solutions, and delivering world-class services efficiently. Could you tell us, same question, what is your vision of the decarbonization of the industry today?
First of all, thank you very much for attending this session, and Sophie, thank you for handling this. In terms of sustainability and decarbonization, I think within the defense industry, it's a bit limited. However, we work with partners, especially logistics partners and many technology partners, where they focuses more toward the sustainability of the sector. Now, I'll go back to your question, but first I'll start with the supply chain and the challenges that the market has gone through in the last 4 or 5 years, and due to COVID and due to the economical strains on the way. Basically, you've got a vision that most countries have set for decarbonization and for sustainability. However, the supply chain and the economical costs that took into consideration are not balanced, let's say. My colleague here said it takes 10 flights to make one phone, so how is that sustainable? Even if you make the lightest weight possible for the cargo. So I think by maybe going back and correcting or balancing some of what we set as visions in terms of 2050 vision or in terms of decarbonization, and thinking how logical is this. Now, the challenges we've been through in terms of supply chain, going back to the raw material, which is a strain for all the industries, whether it's aeronautical, whether it is defense, whether it is medical, and not finding the right materials on the right cost or the right time, is one of the issues that we have, I think, bigger companies today had addressed in terms of going back and investing in a sustainable supply chain process, let's say. And for the defense, going back to your question, for the defense decarbonization, I think what we tend to do in Barzan especially is to deal with bigger partners or partners who are advanced within the defense industry that consider sustainability within their processes. So, for example, in Qatar right now, due also to the limitation of population or manpower, total population in Qatar is around 2.5 million, so it's very limited. We've decided to go mostly robotics on the systems and mostly less human being in the process, which is considered sustainable somehow in terms of making sure that the use of materials that contributes in sustainability is within the supply within the processes. So this is one. Two, the defense industry have fully focused in terms of changing fuel, in terms of sustainable fuel, even in the use of aircraft. So, and this will depend on the industry leaders, especially the engine makers. So we do take this into consideration if you're asking me about the CEO, the decarbonization point of view. But I also have some questions to the gentlemen here.
Go ahead. This is an interactive session, so go ahead. So
they've all mentioned weight. They've all mentioned 2050, and they've all mentioned sustainable fuel. How would that make economical? How would you balance that against the economical aspect of a business in terms of meeting a reliable source, a reliable energy, basically, at the same time cost-wise? So how would we meet that? If you understand what I mean.
I think if we need to scale. I mean, these are new technologies coming up and new resources. So the time now is for the industry to invest in those because they are quite scarce and they are also going to be disputed. It's talking about sustainable aviation fuel. We are not the only ones tapping into those. The automotive industry, all these other sectors, they also want to secure their share of the resources. And I agree with you. Right now, the cost, as I said, alone in transportation is around 30%. Even as a passenger, if you would like to book your own flight, at the time that you are going to opt in for sustainable aviation fuel, it almost doubles the price of the airfare. So I'm fully in alignment.
Because that does affect me as a customer at the end of the day. Like we've seen the dramatic change in terms of the political issues within the region, in terms of the increase of prices in cargo, for example. But as also industries, we do consider logistics, sustainable energy, new processes, faster processes, securing of supply chain. However, that has a cost if we came today and apply these, let's say, visions. How would everyone's speaking about electrical planes. Is that the reliable
Michel.
process or source that we are looking into?
I did mention that there's not yet a convergence of what would be this breakthrough new technology, the disruptive technology, but I think one thing that we can say almost certainly at Embraer, that we don't believe in electric commercial aircraft larger than 9 seats.
Larger than 9 seats.
So this was the one that we kind of put out of our focus. We focus on hydrogen and hybrid and fuel cells, but not pure electric. But on costs, one comment I wanted to make is that a lot of this development depends really on the regulation, whether it's going to be regional, global, and how the airlines and the end customers will be forced to pay for it. But I think at a certain point we need to accept that there will be an impact and traveling will become more expensive. In aviation, I think we've witnessed over the last 70 years the constant reduction of the ticket price. In a real value, it could be as high as 10 times. Traveling today is probably 10 times cheaper than in the 70s. And I think it shows that there is potentially still some room to grow back. It's not, as an aviation enthusiast, it's not something that I want, right? I would love to have a magical solution that can remove the CO2 and continue to grow aviation, and I don't know, up to 8, 10, 15 billion passengers a year. But I think we will need to slow down for a moment. It will become a little bit more expensive. And the faster we overcome the technological challenges, the faster we can come back on a growth path and reduce the prices again. But there will be, I think, a period of
I really
remember
thank you
that
for
Michel is the voice of the reason, no?
Yeah.
Said that earlier.
I really thank you for your statement. I think it is clear that we all want, as an industry, to be meeting all the sustainability toward the environment, toward the supply chain. But however, there is a huge cost and there is a reality. As the end users want to meet these targets in terms of sustainability, like the airlines or like certain countries or companies, they want to meet such a level of decarbonization. There is a cost for that. Is it doable to make a plane with fully electric engine? Yes, it is, but how much will it cost? So at the end of the day, that becomes an effect back to the end users. So at the same time, either regulations or end users is requesting that today. So it is a challenge at the same time.
Thierry, you want to answer? And then we'll hear Nasra.
It's, I think, very interesting questions. At the end, we all want to travel, want to be able to pay for fare tickets in a reasonable price. But overall, it's about technology, I think. Of course, we're not going to make a SAF, Sustainable Air Fuel, 100% tomorrow morning. It would take a few percent over time because simply there's not enough produced. So maybe over 20 years, 30 years, you increase your SAF, and the cost of SAF should also decrease the volumes. Technology, new engines will come through with another 15%, 20% reduction. So again, use it as fuel. I hope I'm playing for Excel. More lightweighting materials. You need less fuel. So overall, it's a big equation on technologies. A mix of energies is maybe, I agree, maybe not electric aircraft for large passengers, maybe too complex, but the equation might work if we invest in new technologies. At the end, is to save fuel.
Let's be optimistic. We want to hear you, Nasra. Nasra Aslam, project manager for Trelleborg. Trelleborg is a leading global provider of polymer solutions that seal, damp, and protect critical applications in demanding environment. You offer innovative solutions to help customers improve performance, reduce cost, and minimize, of course, the environmental impact. What is your vision precisely on the decarbonization of the industry?
Hi, Sophie. Thank you for having me here. And on behalf of Trelleborg, I'm delighted to explain what our vision is. So, first of all, we don't...
Bring the mic close to your chin. Yes, perfect.
We don't have one solution. We don't have the magics. And we don't have that silver bullet that you were talking about. What we do is we do not break that down to a limiting, this is our target. We use what local governments offer and give us, for example, the Paris Climate Agreement, and we break that down to what that means to each person, each area, each factory, each division. Implement it, and it's different in each part of the world.
Can you give us some examples to illustrate?
For example, we are really happy to be here in Morocco. We're creating a new facility, and we're looking at how to make that building more greener, more sustainable, using local supply chain and building local supply chain. We've signed up, Trelleborg always signs up to what is known as in the UK as corporate social responsibility. And then we translate that into whatever that means locally. What does corporate social responsibility mean? Does that mean we help with social welfare, local schooling, supports, local community groups, and build that in within the fabric?
So the question is same. How to make a difference on this challenging issues today?
I think that's a really wide question. And one of the things is, okay, well, everything comes at a cost, but you have to start somewhere. Trelleborg makes sure that we have a sustainability budget. So we put that to one side to see, okay, what kind of a difference we can make. What does that mean? Does that mean in our spare time we use that money to facilitate a cleanup project, a greener river project, include R&D development. So, for example, in some places of the planet where the use of harmful chemicals might be allowed, in others possibly not. So we work with the local government, local communities to try to eliminate those harmful chemicals from our organizations, from our factories, to keep our staff safe.
We have I'm looking at the clock, we have a couple of minutes left before we open the question to the audience. I have a couple more questions to you all around this round table. How can aerospace companies implement circular economy? I don't think we have touched this so far. Circular economy principles within their supply chains to minimize waste and enhance resource efficiency. Who wants to try to answer that? Thierry, Marcelo?
I already mentioned recycling as one way we need to find solutions. Circular economy is even the next step. Is to make sure we can recycle maybe in 20 years, 30 years, a carbon fuselage. In small piece, we can make another aerospace part. And this is a real tough situation, looking at all qualifications, certification you need to go through. It's not impossible. I think we're working with a lot of partners to find solutions. Not there yet. I'm talking in our composite materials.
Right.
But in metallic, it's easier to some extent. Recycling aluminium, titanium. which is a stretch today. So recycling titanium even better because it's addressing supply chain issues as well. So it's a lot of things are running in this direction. It will take again 10 years to get solutions. But this will be a key part of the future requirements to be on board on the next aircraft.
Michel at Embraer is...
I'm not sure if I can give you a very crisp answer because there are so many materials parts of completely different nature as part of an aircraft that each of them probably would need to be discussed separately. But I think to give you a bit of a feeling of where we are, I said that 2018 is where the sustainability discussion almost hit us like a hammer in the head, and we all focus on CO2. Now that we have this more aligned vision as an industry on the CO2 decarbonization long-term plan, more and more focus is coming on the other aspect of sustainability, energy efficiency of own operations, non-CO2 emissions, but also material management. I'm not able to go into the detailed programs or initiatives we're doing, but we're starting to monitor it much more carefully. We are reporting, we are following all the international standards on especially the recyclability of the hazardous materials. Before this panel, I checked our report. We were recycling only 7% of hazardous material in 2021. 3 years later, it's already at 30% something. So early stage of catching up with what needed to be done, but it's becoming a focus now.
Marcelo?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I would say that the first step also needs to be created, which is, the circular economy study is a very deep one and requires sustainability experts. It's still a nice exercise if you go through that process, but it's one that is also very challenging. I've been part of one that takes different approaches, but you don't need all the data because data and sustainability remains a problem. But I think it's also evolving. So the second part of it is then when we reach the level where the circular economy will bring more efficiency also to the supply chain, that might be more attractive as opposed to add cost, what Mohammed is. Because I agree, some initiatives in sustainability, like sustainable aviation fuel or some other, even recycling, they rather add cost to the supply chain or to our value chain. But some others, they do also are related to cost efficiency, like your lighter composites. They make the plane fly for less fuel consumption, bringing less emissions, but also less cost to it as well, right? So I think once you have the initiatives aligned and there is an incentive to rather tap on the circular economy, once we have mapped it out, maybe we can convert at least those who are sort of low-hanging fruits, we can start converting into a better prospect.
Mohammed, is circular economy something you're targeting in Qatar?
Absolutely.
And how?
Especially also in defense companies, through recycling also of raw materials is the main objective. I'll give a quick example. For example, when the end user uses certain ammunition or certain products, that goes back immediately to recycling. And it's not just for saving costs or sustainability, it's also for limitation of the supply chain of the raw materials. So this is something we take into consideration.
Seriously. I'm looking at the audience and see if we have 5 more minutes. If you have any question, just raise your hands and we can take a question. Yeah, go ahead. Is there any question in the audience? And if not, I have other questions for the panel. So we haven't touched on new technologies and AI yet, so I have a question on that. What role does new technology such as AI and blockchain play in enhancing transparency and traceability in sustainable aerospace supply chain? AI, what's the role of AI today for you guys? Let's go around the table for that. Thierry, you want to start?
I can start. I think you use AI in our R&D lab today to speed up the development of new technologies, new polymers in particular.
Yes.
including sustainability requirements. And whilst you were taking ages to make tests and mixing and things, you start to accelerate the way to find solutions and be innovative solutions as well. So IA is a good example of actually these type of things. On the other end, I think our customers as well are looking to have the whole traceability of the substance used on all aircraft. I'm sure everybody will ask soon how many tons of this product and this product and these materials be used on each aircraft to be able to sell it, by the way. So we need also tools, systems, and maybe AI can also help as well to help us to make it's a huge task around the world to get this traceability available.
Marcelo and Michel?
I used to like a very nice comparison, comparing the emissions data back to the cost. Because 30 years ago, maybe the cost control that companies has today and the breakdown on each and every cost level of products, of services, or whatever is just enormous. We can break down the cost from the entire supply chain and clearly sort of dictate who else making the money, what's the cost level, and so on. And I like to think that the emissions are coming that way. So the similar system that we have, like SAP, in terms of cost control, this needs to disrupt as well in the emissions data. So looking at AI, and especially I'm a big fan of blockchain, I would say that this could also play an interesting part, because, and also to leapfrog into the next. Because if we are going to wait 20 to 30 years until an SAP of emissions comes along, then it will be already too late. But maybe AI, especially, or blockchain in terms of traceability of those emissions data, could play an active role in it.
Michel?
That's interesting. I think, design side of things, we're not there yet. There's not AI that could design the aircraft for us. And AI, I think there's a hype, right? But the hype is all created mostly because of the language generative models, and their application is limited in what we do. But the broader digitalization has completely revolutionized what we can do in design. When we were designing Day 2, I think we tested around 5,000 or 8,000 permutation variation of the shape of our wing, right? Yeah. Something that was completely inaccessible with the previous generation of the aircraft. And then you can simulate very accurately performance of each of them, and then only down select it to 5 most promising, and then test them in real life in a wind tunnel. So yes, this digital, and there are probably 100 other examples of how the digital modeling can help optimize the design process. But can we remove the human element out of it? I think I don't have any obvious examples right now, but we're gonna get there, right? It's a technology that is evolving so quickly that for sure the application in the design and manufacturing will emerge quite soon.
Nasra?
I'm not sure we want to remove the human element at Trelleborg. In terms of creativity, we want to keep that there. AI is very much used for data collection, data gathering. One of the things we've used it for is actually for product longevity, and to make sure that our product lasts longer so that we can warranty it for longer.
Good. Mohammed?
Good.
Yes, and then Michel. On AI.
You've mentioned how does that contribute in transparency. It's a personal opinion. I don't think AI is a verification tool, because who makes AI? We make the AI. So I think it's more of a cross-checking tool rather than authentication or verification. So it does contribute, it does support, however, it won't be able, maybe blockchain would make sure that the process is as transparent as possible as a tool. But I don't see AI making things transparent towards decarbonization.
Michel?
No, I was kind of thinking as I was speaking about some other application, and only just as I finished my
Go ahead.
my part, I spotted there's my colleague from support and services side in the audience, and which reminded me of another potential application for the AI. We talk a lot about reliability nowadays in our industry, right? Because the new technologies, they bring the CO2 emissions reductions, but sometimes, unfortunately, at cost of reliability. And I think the term maintenance and predictive maintenance is something that will be the area where AI can help try to improve and address the reliability upfront. And I think this is one area where AI tools, I would guess, would have an impact pretty soon.
Question in the audience. Are there any? No. So maybe one last question, if we look at the big picture maybe. According to you guys, how can collaboration among stakeholders, including manufacturers, suppliers, and regulatory bodies, be improved to promote sustainability initiatives in the aerospace industry? Nasra and then Mohammed.
I think this is a really important question, but also really needed. It's only when we're actually focusing on the same goal do we then put things into practice. So it has to be aligned. Then we can network and find solutions together.
Mm-hmm. Mohammed?
I'm not going to speak only about the aeronautical industry. I'm just going to speak about across most industries. I don't think that regulation and industry could meet. However,
can meet?
Yeah,
I don't think they can meet.
I don't think they can meet in terms of agreement because
Okay.
the industry wants to keep costs down. So that's from my perspective. But I think if the vision is, I think we see this a lot today. Now there is more interaction between the regulators and the end users and the industry because of the end users. Mm-hmm. Because the end user wants to have a better process to create sustainability. However, I think as industries, we also need patience from the regulators and from the end users. So in order to reach where we are, because it is very costly and it is very difficult to reach to such targets.
Yes.
And we've seen some countries in Europe especially extending deadlines, which gives you the indication. There is nothing wrong with setting deadlines, but I don't think it is appropriate to say we stop fuel from 2030. That's it. I don't think it's doable. So instead of, I think, having strict deadlines, I think having synergy between the end user and the industry with the alliance of the regulator, because the regulator is the most pushy, which is their right. However, reality is reality. So I think sorry for that.
The rest of you on that question.
I think that collaboration is imperative in that context.
It's key.
And like I think you were saying that the airlines, they don't know exactly, they just operate the aircraft, right? They don't understand much of the technology on how to bring down their emissions, but you are the ones selling the aircraft to them, so you give them that. On the same side, you also expect your suppliers to come with the initiatives to reduce the emissions and so on. So I think this is kind of collaboration. And if we take all of these breakdowns on the logistics side, we have the obligation as a logistics company to advise our customers and to bring the green offerings around transportation, warehousing, or whatever it is on the table with the initiatives, with the best practices, and also with the services that are aligned to it. If everybody in the supply chain would do this, I think this calls for collaboration, and therefore we would have a better...
Michel.
On the collaboration front, I'm not worried. I think this industry has been collaborating for ages. Aircrafts are too complex of machines for anyone to handle it themselves, and we're used to it, right? The times when Boeing, United Airlines, and Pratt & Whitney were one big family, fully vertically integrated. They were gone 100 years ago. And now, especially as we're dealing with less mature, more risky technologies, we are naturally incentivized to share this risk and educate each other. I think the regulation part is where I'm a little bit more concerned, because if I were to have one wish, is for the regulator to appreciate the complexity and not to use too blunt of the tools, and to focus on incentives rather than penalties. And this is not always the case.
Thierry, one last word on that?
Yeah, it's a complex question in a sense. It depends where you sit. Regulations are not across the world. If I'm sitting in India, I'm sitting in Europe myself. There are clear regulations and target difficult to meet, by the way, which effectively we need to push out. It's something we need harmonization as well globally. It's nearly impossible in the next decade. It's politics as well. But at the end, regulations, for you can read on both sides, is a barrier or an opportunity.
So,
And for me, a more optimistic side, we see from our side, maybe from Excel side, sustainability regulation is an opportunity to push more lightweighting solutions.
all right. Are there any questions? No. One last message, lady, gentlemen, and if not, we're going to conclude this session. I would like to warmly thank and applaud our panelists this afternoon. Thank you very much for your very relevant speeches. Thank you for attending this roundtable. Next is another roundtable, I think.